Thank you, Commissioner Isom. Just quickly,
If you lock that door, this thing will go a lot faster.
right. This is everything through the end of May, as it relates to last year versus this year. For the most part, we're good in all areas. The one that, like I said, from cash, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about what I want to point out is in utility services is relatively low. The thing that is there is that we have to draw money from grant dollars, the lead pilot grant and FDCVT grant that have not come through yet. So that's why this number is relatively low.
It's great to get the money.
Correct. Yeah, but as far as everything else, we are again ahead of schedule in the general fund, the income tax, the major local street fund, permanent public improvement is about even. Like I said, the utility service and then property tax collection. As we look at this, we look at, again, this is a description of where we are as it relates to this time of year, 92%. Basically, this is the number representation of what was just put up, what I just put up.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that we are ahead. Like I said, we're a little bit lagging in revenues here.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we're good.
2 weeks left for the budget.
We got a month left.
Oh, a month.
Yeah, we got a month left. So this month that we're currently in, 2 weeks from now will be the end of the fiscal year, correct? But this is up to last end of last month. So it's revenue and expenditures comparatively, actual year to date. Like I said, this is the revenue versus the expenditure for 2000. I'm sorry. Let me get it right. 2000. This is 2000. The amended budget.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actual year to date versus the amended budget. So this is where we basically have fixed the issues that we had, and where we made the amended budget that was passed on Monday. This is the adjustment. So year to date versus the amended budget. So that's what you're looking at. There is nothing that glaringly stands out that's really crazy. We're good as far as, like I said, everything pretty much is, we should be at 92%. The only thing that we're over in is we have more revenue than we should normally have. So, I mean, that's not a bad, right? So, general fund activity, year to date. So this is 2017-18 versus 2018-19, compared revenues versus expenditures. Revenue-wise, we're about the same, a couple $100,000 less. Expenditure-wise, we're a little bit more, $600,000 more. Our expenditures are a little bit higher, but again, understand there's some lag time with some grant dollars that need to come in. Here is basically everything in the general fund from a revenue standpoint. So our estimations from the amended budget, even with the amended budget, we're going to come in a little bit higher with licensing and permits. Grants are at 100%. Our interest and rentals, 111%. Miscellaneous, we're right on target. So all our revenue with the exception of the income tax, which is some lag there, and then the fines and fees, which is always, it's not an exact science, but we do the best we can based on historical data that we have. So we're at 67% there. Our expenditures, again, we should be at 92%. And for the most part, everybody is. The debt service is at 100%. And like I said, that's because we make the payment and it's done. But other than that, everything else is in line, or it's under what we anticipated it would be. So we're doing good. Major local streets, again, this is a comparison of last year to this year. Year-to-date revenues, $850,000. Again, the fiscal year for the state is through September. Right. So we'll get a payment after our fiscal year ends, and then we'll have to bring it back in, and that's what we reconcile when we do our audit. These are our revenues. These are our expenditures thus far on the major street side. and here's the representation of what has been spent. The allocation from local streets is right on target, but that is because we make that payment every month, and it's a set amount, and so 92% matches the 92% we should be at. But everything else is under, which is what we want. Local streets, revenue is $391,950. Our expenditures $296,623. Again, we have more local streets than we do majors. And from that standpoint, here's where we are. Routine maintenance is at 89%, 28% on admin. Winter maintenance, which is done, is at 91%. Again, we're pretty good on that, and as we move forward.
With the routine maintenance, filling potholes with.
Continues to go on until the end of the fiscal year. Yeah, that you'll see that number will kick up.
Okay.
Yep. Community development, block grant, year-to-date revenues $917,000, expenditures $996. So we have basically gotten our money back. The money that we expended, we're now getting back. We still have some more draws to do from federal government, but at this point, we are about where we need to be.
We met all our deadlines.
Met the deadlines that we did. Our rehab is one, that's our emergency and major rehab, 148%. Again, we're doing a little bit more than what we anticipated, because when we get into these houses, it's tough. It's tough, so we have to fix them.
Add more projects too.
Yep, add more projects to them. So overall, we're at 66%. Utility services fund, as I said, year-to-date revenue is $3,021,000. Our expenditures are $4,159,000. Again, a lot of that is attributed to the monies that we have not received from the FDCVT and or the lead grant. So here's where you'll see water treatment. This is lead grant. Sewer lift stations. This is just basically, we've been getting hit with a lot of infiltration and intrusion from the waters that we've had, which again, we can't predict, but we do the best we can doing it based on the data we know. But for the most part, we're at 84% overall.
Did we get those lift stations repaired?
Repaired, pumps are in, the whole nine. Like I said, we're just hoping that we get cross our fingers that the rain stops for a period of time. I mean, we're supposed to get rain tonight into tomorrow. So that's it. That's pretty much it. Unless there's some questions, we'll move on to the next.
Covered everything, I think.
Okay.
Anybody got some questions up here? All right, next on the agenda we have, easement for AEP.
And I don't see Mr. Jonathan Ross here. He was supposed, there's a gentleman, Mr. Jonathan Ross, was coming to make a presentation relative to the easement that they're asking. I don't know where he's at. He said he was here last week. I told him, he said he'd be here this week. So if he's, that's not him, so we can move to the.
Road plan?
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna yield the floor to Mr. Chris Cook and Mr. Tim Drew. All right.
Letting the commissioners know we switched the agenda, commissioner switched the agenda, this is the road plan. Just finished up the matrix. This is the road plan that we're gonna.
Okay, thank you. Happy to be here tonight to tell you about the work that's been done to plan out the next 3 years for road improvements. I think that you may have seen some or a lot of this before, but we plan on giving you a little bit of background, go through some of the existing conditions, talk about how we can fix the streets, and then go into the way to spend the money that we recommended with the use of some software that helps us make those decisions. So just a little bit of background. The city has close to 65 miles of streets. Darwin just showed you the breakdown on the finances between major and local. 22.8 miles are major, 34.1 are local, so there is considerably more local than there is major. And about 8 miles are state routes, which would be Main Street and Fair Avenue. We also have a significant amount of alleys and sidewalks, and we have completed studies on both of those. We're not going to talk about those tonight. We're going to stick to streets, but we do have plans prepared and we're ready to present whenever you're ready on those two issues as well. Additionally, about 2/3 of the roads are asphalt and most of the rest are concrete, so that should come as no surprise. A little bit more background. We use this rating system that's used throughout the state, throughout many parts of the country actually, called PASER, and that's a way of consistently applying a procedure to review the streets and rate them. And then we use RoadSoft. That's the software that I mentioned that allows us to keep a running inventory of the conditions of the streets, track those conditions over time. It gives us the ability to predict the future, and then also to optimize the repairs and maintenance most cost effectively as we can. We did evaluate every street in the city, rated them. Typically in the past, the way cities have gone about dealing with their roads is we've got a street that's all potholed, it's in horrible shape, now's the time to deal with it. That has been changing with time, and now there's asset management being applied, which means that there's a mix of fixes that gets applied. So that means we spend a little bit of money on some of the good roads to keep them good, so they don't get expensive and poor. And at the same time, we also have to fix some of the poor roads. The current street condition summary is that on the major streets, we've got about 53% poor, another third are fair, and about 13% are in good shape. And those are the ones that have been repaved in the last few years. The local streets are worse. Almost 80% are in poor condition. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, hence the need for the income tax. This gives you a graphical representation of that on the map here. Basically all that red that you see are the poor condition roads. Again, probably doesn't come as any surprise to anyone in the room that we have a lot of streets around town that are in poor shape. This just gives you a sense of what the roads look like when they're different ratings. So a newly paved road, like Colfax was a few years ago, that would be a 9, a very good road. One that might be considered fair or average would be this stretch of Empire from McAllister to Pavone. This picture was taken a couple of years ago, by the way. And then a 1, a poor road. This is the Summit Hill. There are certainly some that are worse than this. They're also a 1. Once you get to a certain level of degradation, it doesn't get any worse than 1. That kind of gives you a sense for what those different things look like. Again, this curve shows at the top when it's the cheapest, we want, or to the left there, is when we want to conduct routine maintenance, keep the streets swept, plow the roads, keep the drainage structures clear. As they start to age, we get into preventive maintenance, and that's that time that we want to make sure we keep the good roads good. Because as you can see, as the roads move to poor on the curve far to the right there, that's when they get really expensive. So we don't want to deal with those if we can avoid it. This gives you a sense of how that works. So I'll just talk right now about the asphalt streets, but if we can crack seal when they're in good shape, it costs us about $3,000 per lane mile. When we're still in fair to good shape and we can put a seal over it, so we can chip seal it and then secure that with a black surface over the top, we're about $60,000 per lane mile. When it comes time, when they get a little bit worse, they're on the border between fair and poor, then we're into some mill and overlay. So we're chewing up the top 2 inches of asphalt, putting 2 new fresh layers of 2 fresh inches of asphalt down. Now we're at almost $250,000 per lane mile. When we get into that poor category, 1s and 2s, now we're reconstructing. Now we're at $880,000 per lane mile. That's why we want to get them early. We have put on here an emergency fix, which is something we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But as we talked with the tax committee, they wanted to earmark $100,000 or 10% of the funds available in the income tax for an emergency. Might be one that's in poor shape, we want to come in and do a mill and overlay and get it cleaned up the best we can right now. That's also in that $230,000. Similarly with concrete, similar approach, just slightly different numbers. So again, after several meetings with the tax committee, we looked at an estimated total of tax revenue available through the income tax of $1 million. They advised us to set aside 10% for those emergencies. We've got a road that's in really bad shape. Let's get some asphalt on that. Leaves us $900,000, of which we would spend 80% of our street budget on roads, another 10 on alleys, and another 10 on sidewalks. And then the funding of the roads would be equally distributed between majors and locals. The major streets tend to cost a little bit more to fix. They have all the heavier traffic on them. The local streets and the neighborhoods certainly need it. This shows you at that spending level how the conditions of the roads will fare. So from 2018, which is the first year that we set as our baseline, the poor roads you can see on the major streets are roughly half the total. We'll probably continue at that spending level to bring that down to maybe 40% still poor, but we're going to take the remaining fair roads and make them good with this approach. On the local streets, we're at roughly 75% poor to start. We're going to move those fares to goods again. You see that the poor stays relatively the same, and we make some incremental improvements to get that down into the 60% poor range. So $360,000 a year helps, but doesn't solve the problem. This is an overall view, and I won't dwell on this because we'll go into a little bit more detail, but this shows all of the streets that would be addressed with the funding scenario that I just showed you. The $1 million a year spread between emergencies, local and major streets, sidewalks and alleys. The bolder lines, or the thicker hatches up there, are areas that we're looking at doing in conjunction with sewer and water work based upon those previous studies that were done. So this, apologize for the fuzziness of it, but essentially happy to provide you with this, and I think it's already on the website. But we're looking at addressing a number of the streets in the first year. And so this would be the 2019 plan. And essentially what we're looking at there is, the central part of town, the Catalpas, the Clay Streets, the Empire, May, on down to Columbus, Bishop, that part of the area would get treated, along with the Highland, McCord, Sealy, Odin area up in the northeast part of town. There's a variety of fixes there. That's the mix of fix, from the emergencies to sealing some of the good roads that are in that area to fixing some of the concrete streets with joint repair, etc. 2020, similar approach, different locations. Also continuing to spread it around town. Superior, Bishop, Colfax. Colfax was one of the roads I showed you that was in good shape. We want to keep Colfax good so we don't have to spend a lot of money later fixing that. So that would be one that gets that crack seal coat type of treatment. Broadway, for a good portion of it, get some reconstruction, along with areas of the Bus and High and Nate Wells area, also up to John Street, Stevens, and the Arts District would also get that. Those roads are still in good shape. Those would get some of that seal coat at a fairly inexpensive rate. We would also do the same with Graham and Clock Road. So then into 2021. 2021, we looked at trying to be as efficient as we could there. And so we focused our efforts that year on McAllister, Pavone, and Broadway, finish up the Broadway project that was done the year before, so that we'd have those north-south streets that are all parallel to each other done at the same time. That we feel like would be efficient from a cost perspective, and gets those areas addressed. This then, this next slide shows you those areas that within the 5-year plan of our sewer and water work would get addressed. We have applied for, that you all saw and approved, we had a public hearing in regards to our application to the state for low-interest loans for sewer and water, and that would be on that Pipestone stretch and the Market Street, and then also up for the Stevens Street area, and then also Benton. So we're hopeful that those loans will be approved here in the fall, and that would allow us to fix the utilities, and when we tear up the utilities and put in new, at the same time we build new roads on top. So that's the cheapest way to build a new road, is to already have fixed the utilities underneath. So again, we're hopeful that that gets approved by the state so we can move forward with that. This slide represents all those again combined into one. You can again see that a large part of town gets covered with road improvements, but there's certainly more to do. Our system for coming up with this 3-year plan to help guide you is based upon data, it's based upon conditions, it's based upon predicted conditions, and it's based upon efficient use of funds. There's science behind it, is essentially what I'm trying to tell you. There are plenty of other streets that could be chosen that need help as well. We picked them with the help of the software, but also some engineering judgment, in particular as it relates to that McAllister, Pavone, Broadway segment, that we could look in one area and be efficient and cost effective in that regard. This isn't the only plan that could be hatched. We think it's a good one. We think it's based on sound engineering. If you all have other thoughts, we're certainly open to them. But again, we feel like this is a very good start. It's the first 3 years of many, many years of necessary road improvements based upon available funding. This map is here again just to kind of show the upcoming projects for the next 20 years. This was related to the utilities and the remaining 4 roads. That drawing is actually up on the easel over here as well for anyone to take a look at. But over 20 years, essentially, we have to touch every road in town. And In total, we're looking at over $100 million expenditure plan to deal with the sewer, the water, and the roads over those 20 years. The income tax helps, low interest loans help. We want some grants whenever we can. We're certainly looking for those, whether they're through MDOT or they're through what's now called EAGLE, used to be the DEQ. Whatever help that we can get. Some of the low interest loans appear like they're going to have a loan forgiveness portion attached to them. That will come out with the next legislative session in the new fiscal year, which Darwin just mentioned starts October 1st. And so that's what we've put together. Again, we feel like this is a really good plan to start attacking the roads. And I think that the important takeaway for me to try to impart to all of you would be, we can debate which roads ought to get started on first. We're certainly willing to have that discussion with you all, but I would just urge you to get started on something right now so that we can get the process going. Folks can see that the income tax is doing some good, and then we can see what that looks like, and then we can start to replicate that in the future down the road and work towards improving the entire street system. So with that, I'll be quiet and see if you all have any questions.
I have one.
Step up.
I have one. I just have a question. I think it's been asked and answered before in regards to in the township.
Can you talk in the mic for me?
Thank you.
I will.
Thank you, Ms. O'Keefe.
Thank you. I just have a question about in the township, they did the rocks over whatever. Is that an option at all for some of the roads, some of the concrete roads? I know I was told about the drains, that some of those rocks can go into the drain, but is that an option? Because I noticed they've done that every other year with different roads.
Sure. Thank you, that's an excellent question. So the question was, is the chip and seal that's used quite often out in the county a good option? It isn't really a good option in the city. And the biggest reason for that is the storm drains, as were mentioned. Those stones end up in the storm drains, they clog them up. We want to make sure that those drain the best that they can. They get up in the yards. They cause a lot of mess. What we now prefer to use in cities is we can have that seal coat, the chip seal rather, but then we put what's called a cape seal over the top of that keeps those rocks down. And St. Joe just went through and did that process. You might see some of the roads over there. We're talking about doing basically the same thing here on some of those good roads.
What is that process called? Because you said it's different than the chip seal.
It's called a cape seal process.
So you're considering that for some of the roads?
We are, yes.
And how much is that as opposed to, is it the 5,000?
$3,000 lane mile, yes.
Thank you. I'm waiting for some recommendations to come from the advisory board to this body so that we can vote on something, because something needs to be moving, because we've gone beyond potholes. We're dealing with baby graves now, to the point where residents are tearing up their vehicles. And that map, yeah, we need a second opinion on the overall inspection of the streets. And yes, we must keep those up that are in good condition and put some type of sealant on and keep them that way until they can be fully gotten to. But my thing is, we have some streets that seem to be not only salvageable, but being preserved. Our bricks. And the next time some of them come up, we need to be utilizing. The city of Benton Harbor needs to be utilizing them to do some nice landscaping wherever we are working. instead of allowing others to take them to their communities and enhance and beautify it. My next question is concrete as opposed to asphalt. I don't care how long it takes, that's where we need to be starting, with concrete, something that's long lasting, to where we don't have to keep, we're not trying to keep anybody employed, because the whole America is falling apart. They just have to follow the jobs as one job is finished. But it seems like that's exactly what goes on with this black asphalt. It's just keeping people employed, businesses running. We need concrete, and I know it's more expensive. And that's what we're gonna pay for, quality of work. And I'm hoping that that's what we take into great consideration. Thank you.
Yes. It's good. The streets that, we had some crack seals done, I don't know, months ago, and now those streets are still, we're trying to keep those good streets, right?
That's correct.
We won't be messing with, we won't be doing nothing to those streets at this time.
Well, in the first 3 years, I think that we're not coming back to touch many, if any of those, but essentially you should be crack sealing those every 2 or 3 years to keep them in that good shape.
And the 2019 project, are these streets just gonna be sealed over, no infrastructure up under there, drainage and nothing like that, just repaved over?
We looked at,
With asphalt?
yes. The streets that were chosen for 2019 were those that would not have necessary utility work under them, so that we don't put a new road in and then need to tear it up for the sewer and the water, with the exception of those that were in that older area where we do have planned utility work.
You wrote this all on yourself, or just getting the information from your workers?
Both. I drive the streets every day to see how we're doing, and, I see what you see.
'Cause what I notice is, especially in the, when you're approaching intersections, more like the four-way stops, and as you approach it, that's what you're crossing over, you get a whole lot of really deep ones there, but as you, farther back, then you get holes here and holes there. And I don't know if it would be cost effective or whatever to go in and do all the, like the cross T-sections, get that fixed and then go back and hit the potholes, kind of do that, and that kind of like get you by until you get ready to do something else or something, but it's real bad. And I think if we wait on just to do a whole street and all that, that's gonna take a whole lot of time. In the meantime, folks are still gonna be tearing up the cars and everything else, so I think
Right.
those could be, the ones that could be patched up, the holes just patched up, basically making them safe to drive over. That's the approach that I like to see happen, and just make them safe, and then we go back and do whatever we need to do to make them long-term.
Certainly what we're proposing is for what I'll call larger scale construction. At the same time, we would expect that the local and major street funds get used to continue to fill potholes, and we can't turn a blind eye to them. And I think no one expects that would be the case, that we will try to stay after and get potholes filled. The thing with that and the thing with the intersections is, in large part, those get created because the water gets underneath. and we want to keep that water out, but they tend to be at intersections and where the potholes have formed in flatter spots. And so that pothole repair is something that we're gonna have to keep doing every year until we can get in and reconstruct the road. So it's not like the pothole fix is gonna be permanent either. So just wanna make sure we set expectations there.
With the way they're being built, like now, I don't know, it don't seem like seems like it's a better way to do that, and I see them do it in other places, because basically now it looks like you just come in, throw some asphalt on top of the hole might even still have water, and this stuff is just not staying long, And so, I don't know, maybe it's somehow we can, I know we don't have enough people from public works to do it, but some of the money can be used to properly, fill them where they could last just a little bit longer than what they is now, and it was just basically buying them some time, we can get, do some more permanent things, so. The way, like I said, the way it's happening now, it's just a shovel and throw it on there and cars roll over it and maybe smash it down. But
That's kind of how it works, and that's why they don't last.
I don't know, yeah. So, it's like you're basically throwing good money after bad, because you're wasting asphalt, because 2 days, it could be 2 days later, it's like it wasn't even filled.
That's exactly why we want to go about this in a systematic approach, that, it does what it has to do for the potholes, but thinks very systematically about which roads we do when and try to make efficient use of the funds. It's a daunting task.
It is,
Yes.
I just have one last question. What is the proposed start date? I think I missed that when I came in, the proposed start date for these projects, once we get approved.
Sure, the proposed start date is whenever you all tell us to go, we're ready.
No, I'm saying, so are you saying, no, I'm asking, so are you recommending that this go to the full commission for our next meeting? That's what I'm
City
asking.
manager.
So the question, one of the questions that was asked was that, is there anything that came from the income tax that would come to the full commission? This was recommended from the income tax committee to be presented to this committee to go to the full commission for approval. So yeah, that is what this is for, Commissioner Anderson.
Mr. Cook, you're saying, so as soon as if we okay this shovel start moving, be finished by the summer?
Well, so yeah, to manage expectations there, so we have to put the plans and specs together, get it out for bid, get the contractors to bid, and then I think we'd probably be ambitiously looking at, a fall start for this, at this point.
That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Commissioner Adams?
My question is in regards to something that Commissioner Singleton asked about. I watched these holes be filled, and they're up again, and larger holes in just the next week or two. What would happen if we fill these holes with concrete? Would that last longer on top of that? But, I mean, it just seems senseless, especially even starting August when it's going to snow. And it's just...
Here's one of the problems, one of the things that Mr. Cook said, and one of the problems that we have is water. Water is the biggest culprit of potholes. In the state of Michigan, when water gets under the roadbed, it freezes, it expands, then it dissipates, and you create a void. Boom, pothole. Whatever you put there, unless you stop the water from getting to it, you're going to keep coming back. You're going to keep coming back, Commissioner. And it's going to, like you said, it's going to get worse.
Okay, and you're absolutely right, but something else that I've noticed, and this is not the first time that I've saw guys out working on the streets, but there was usually a machine when they fill the hole and make sure that the hole is filled, there was a machine that would roll over it that makes it hot that actually compounds it to the already substance that's there that makes sense. Which is why this has been happening. Other than that, we're flushing the taxpayers' dollars down the stool to continue to do that. Rain or whatever.
See, I'm definitely not a road construction or nothing, but I was kind of told that, by some guy that was in asphalt business for a long time, that clean it out. And I guess that's getting all the water, getting all the junk out.
Slower.
Take too much time.
You sprayed it, some type of stuff, you said it was tack or something. Put that in and you, I guess you get it filled right, and then seal, I don't know if that was the cap seal that you were talking about or what, but it's keeping that water out of there.
That's the key.
Yeah, but that's, I guess ain't happening now, so how do we make that happen? Will that come out of the funds, or will that just would be the road, the money that we get for local major streets? Do we do that out of?
It would be both, honestly. You would have, that would be just more of a process than anything. In listening to what we have going on, what I would say for the first year of this, we talked about emergency, about $100,000. What I would recommend is that we take the $100,000 and get contractors to kind of attenuate to what you were talking about, Commissioner Singleton. And the first year's emergency, whatever it was, the thought we were going to do, let's allocate that to contractors coming in, doing things at intersections and or some bad stretches. So take that first $100,000 and get something done this fall, this summer, this fall. That, if we modify if we just say that's what the first emergency fund was going to be about, then we could start attenuating to what you said.
That's making the streets safe.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we go back, because right now
Right, and like I said, that would not negate what the ultimate plan, the larger scale, but it would just reallocate those dollars for the $100,000 to go toward another effort the first year.
I could support, this plan if in front of it was to making them safe first. And I could support the rest of the plan. My thing is like relief now,
So that's what I was saying. If we, I don't know what the emergency project was for this year, but let's shelve that emergency project. Let's take the $100,000 that is allocated in the plan and go after exactly what you talked about, and then move forward. If there's an emergency plan, or if we need to come back for more, we can do that, because the ultimate approval has got to come from the commission. But what I'm saying is, if we present the plan and say the emergency money will go towards safety, if you will, and then the other dollars would actually go toward the other plans that we got.
Because it is emergency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is it revisable?
So that first year emergency projects that were on there were a block of Ogden from Empire to Clay, and 2 blocks of clay from Broadway to Columbus. So is it revisable? Absolutely. And if that's what you wanted to do, we can. Not a heartbeat. Fine. Good idea, even.
Well, that was definitely one of my concerns about the emergency, 10% put back for emergency, and exactly where that emergency would be. I agree with you that we will do a lot more this first year if we handle the safety part. But there's another component into where the water is causing the damage. So if we don't clean the drains out, if we allow things to continue and not clean the streets, that will continue to happen. So there should be some maintenance to this immediately, in my opinion. And I think that's a great idea to to take that emergency money, which I don't really agree with it. It should be, all of the money should go to local streets. The biggest portion of the money should go to local streets first. We got a large increase in major money this year, and we'll probably get some more next year, but we promised the people who voted for this that we were gonna take care of local streets, alleys, sidewalks. So, the first time, we show them that we really kept our promise, and then we can venture off and get citywide, but local is the key to this one.
I agree with Commissioner Henry. I know we making it equal, but I think local streets, I'm sure we can add more to the local streets. Or phones can go, you know, I know right now it's 360 and 360. I know we can go, I don't know, something better to add more local streets in here. Tax-paying citizens want to see something. You know, they're ready to start, you know, damaging cars. I done heard all kinds of stuff. I feel we can do more local streets with, we can change the allocation of the money to local streets.
Yeah, like, I agree with you on that. Maybe you can even use the percentage, because you said, how much percentage of the local streets was bad? Was 75, 80?
$80% of the local streets are in poor condition. 53% of the major streets are in poor condition. And 22.8 miles are major and 34 are local. So 40% is major roughly and 60% is local. You kind of want to have those numbers clank around in your head a little bit.
Right, so if you kind of even got closer to what the percentage is, you know, 60-40 or the, you know, 25 major and 75 local, you know.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the pie chart, please?
Yes. What I would tell you is that we have essentially no opinion as to what the breakdown should be between major and local. That's your decision, and we support either one, whatever you decide 100%. Because from an engineering perspective, we got enough streets we need to deal with. It doesn't really matter where we start. That was some direction that was given from the tax committee, based on some sound rationale as well. But if you all feel like you want to sway that more towards local, no objection from us.
Well, I definitely support the local, because, you know, again, that was, I think the local did get kind of put aside for a long time because they were trying to get, you know, which most of the commercial or business districts was on major streets. And so a lot of attention was put there, and the local most of the neighborhood streets are on local streets.
Right.
And
The funding's easier to come by on major streets.
Right, so that's,
Yeah.
I believe that was the selling point for the, people in the neighborhoods to say, okay, we understand that they, you know, they're using a lot of the money. It was easy to get the major street funding, but we would sacrifice and push it and pay the extra income tax to, you know, get our local streets done. So I think if we concentrate on spending most of the money there until we get it up to par, you know, then we can start splitting it like that.
I have one question. Two more questions.
Okay,
It would be great, if we get it to stop raining, to deal with the water issue. But my other question is, what is the resolution that will be sent to the commission? What are we going to approve when we hold a special meeting, because our next meeting won't be until July. So we hold a special meeting to get this approved, so we can get this going. But what will the resolution say that is being sent to the entire commission?
It would reflect what the wishes of the committee were to go forward, if it was an
So that's what I'm
80-20,
asking,
an 80-20 split, if it was 75-25.
Specifically.
It would do that. The other thing too is, if you do modify the allocation, then the plan that you're gonna present is gonna be a little different too. So that's gonna have to be adjusted. So you're gonna need time to present, say, okay, if we're gonna spend 80% of 720,000 or $500,000 or $600,000, this is what $600,000 do to local streets versus what we said 50-50 right now. So that would have to be adjusted. So again, the resolution, Commissioner Henderson, to your question, what is the number? Is it 80-20? Is it 75-25? And then the other thing is, the emergency we would put in there, the resolution would say the emergency fund would be put for X. The split would be 80-20 with 80% going local, 20% going major, and then we move forward.
And the second question, will be holding a special meeting?
What, again, like I said, what I would say is we'd have to get the plan to you so you can see it, to approve the plan, because that's what's gonna go along with it.
With the added streets.
Yeah, with the added streets, yes. So reduction of the major and adding the more local, and then you can see it, get it, we'd have a special personnel finance committee meeting to then look at it and then go forward at the commission.
But to get started on the proper filling of the potholes, do we have any in there? Money?
We do. We can do that. We can do that without this. Right, but in order to
Get
spend,
started, we probably eventually need.
in order to spend the income tax money, we have to wait for this. Yes, absolutely. You're right.
Chair, I've been waiting, Chair. Okay.
Dr. Times.
Thank you, Chair. One, correct, historically, the proposal that was presented to the city's residents of Benton Harbor was that the income tax was going to be for local streets, local sidewalks, and local alleyways, and then an emergency fund for those deemed for emergencies. The writing of the actual proposal was not done by the city commissioner or the mayor. It was done independent, and that proposal was more generic, and that was what people voted on. As a member of the income tax oversight, the recommendation is that the directive of this body, that would be how it would be adjusted. Initially, the thought was to present this. There are different opinions that came in, and the overriding as to how the funds will be allocated and the distribution comes from the commission. And so what I recommend and I'll do also is that we take the will of the commission back to the tax oversight and say that the ratio has to be adjusted because this is what's the will and directive of the commission. Then that comes out of there to be forwarded, and then you guys approve, because these things were sent to you and you rightfully so, you kind of rejected them, and now you're giving the appropriate input, standing in line with what the promissory note that was verbally given to the residents. So the income tax oversight should be, the chair should be said that this is the directive, this is the percent, this is the ratio, and then working together again with these gentlemen, they come with that, make the necessary adjustments with the plan, and then present it to the formal body.
Thank you, Dr. Time. Mr.
Can new chair. Oh Lord. From the funds that the city has through public works that we must use and set aside for the local streets, is it possible if we can hire some professionals to come in here and do that? Because I've saw some very sloppy stuff, and I mean, I know they're probably exhausted because it's few of them, but no more excuses. Can we do something that make it look like, or something else has got to give?
City Manager.
That's what we just said we were going to do.
Oh, we were talking about local?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what, to Mr. Tynes' point, I would hate to see more back and forth.
Right,
The bottom line rests with the commission.
right.
If the commission wants to make the recommendation of 80-20, you don't have to give it back to the
Right.
oversight to say, here's what you need to do. You just need to do it. And then we proceed from there.
Right.
That way you don't get back to, yeah, that's red tape all day long. If we're gonna make a move and literally put a shovel in the ground,
Right.
it needs to go now. The recommendation needs to be made. Let the engineer redesign what's gonna happen,
Right.
have a second meeting,
Right.
and then move forward to the commission. That makes it, let's just streamline and make it quick.
Mr. Duncan?
Streamline and make it quick all you want, but the citizens voted for this, and the citizens are the ones what's supposed to be pleased and happy when all of this is over. I mean, the very beginning of it, show us, the citizens, that you guys are about us. I'm not, you're not a commissioner, but I'm pointing at you too. Make sure you let the citizens know that this is all about us because we voted for this. Downtown advisory board or whatever they're called, they were totally against the city income tax. Now, I don't know if you guys have to remember or go back in your memory. We were not supposed to be food. So we're not food. Now we want our local streets taken care of as a priority over any and all of what you're talking about. So I'd like to go on record, as you guys say, that if you don't, the citizens not gonna be happy with none of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Negative. It's constantly negative.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Harrison?
Thank you. I remember when you said that, when I asked about citizen participation, and you was gonna send out, petitions for them to sign, get them a part of it.
Mhm.
So did you, I
We,
didn't receive them.
we didn't have a plan, Commissioner. The plan just came to fruition. So it was put out on the website to see the concept, but now we have a plan that we can then put out and have, what I'm saying to do is to do it's online, to do it online versus trying to mail it to each person, wait for it to come back. If you do it online, you can do it a survey and it's instant.
But could you do it both ways, because, seniors doesn't know how to do online. And a lot of seniors would like to be part of the participation. And, I know they would love to, be a part of where the streets would be started and whatnot. So I remember we talked about that.
We did, and like I said,
Let citizens have input and everything whatnot.
we battled back and forth to get a plan so we could put it out there and show them. Now we're getting ready to redo the plan again and show that we're gonna have to show them. So I agree with you in that respect. But again, we need to have the plan that's gonna be voted on versus a plan that they look at and say, we like it, and then it never come to fruition.
Okay, now how long will this take?
As long as it takes them to redesign based on what we've heard tonight, an 80-20, I'm saying 80-20, I don't know.
In resolution form?
An 80-20 split now redoes that plan, and again, that's probably a matter of a couple days-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, so then we can get rolling on that.
In resolution form?
Again, there's gonna be a resolution form ready to go because we're gonna have,
In that order?
what, I'm sorry.
80-20?
Yeah, the resolution will say 80-20, based on the context of the conversations we've had.
You want to do 80-20?
Mr. Duncan? Mr. Duncan?
Yes, you got six commissioners in here. Will you guys be voting to get us started today? Will you be through the chair, will you guys be voting for them to get started on the inner city streets, our inner city streets? Will you be voting on that today to get them started? Because today is when we need to get it started. Since we're all sitting here smiling and in good spirits, I think we ought to take care of our citizens today.
Thank you, Mr. Delta.
Through the chair.
Chair, question. Through the chair, so the time frame to adjust the one is already on computer, so a slight adjustment in that, and then within that a week to turn around, and then the issue would be to schedule the meeting for review. How in business wise, what would you say, how much time would you need to adjust the graphics to represent the 80-20 split as that's going to be recommended, so that a timetable we get set to have a follow-up meeting?
Sure, I think we'd need a week to make the changes to the graphics and vet that all through and use the software and all that, and then we could get back together at that point.
So if the meeting were scheduled, say, for next Thursday, the 27th, because I know we got planning economic development is next Wednesday. I'm
Special personnel finance meeting.
for that purpose.
Does that meet your deadline, sir? Would you be ready at that time?
We'll make it happen.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Now, in that resolution, we're gonna deal with the issue of the emergency patching.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That are all the conversations that I'll get with the clerk to make sure that the resolution reflects everything that was discussed this evening. Yep.
Mr. Henry?
Chair,
Yes.
I just wanna bring us a little further past our nose. When we let these contracts, I would like to make sure that in the contracts, the 25% for locals is included in the contract, and that make sure that if they do not comply, they pay.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry.
Through the chair, clarification. So, two things. One, the local is so that statement was to be included in the resolution, and then also you made a statement that of a penalty fee, and what would be the said penalty fee?
City manager, you know anything? Speak on that.
I believe what Commissioner Henry is alluding to is Section 3, and it is based on the amount of the project. There's a percentage based on the amount of the project. So that, I don't know that verbatim, I don't.
Chair,
Yes.
I don't really believe we're gonna be able to use Section 3, because that's just for HUD money and federal money. But our own resolution, there's 2 or 3 of them. They're out, it's on book that says that they have to hire local people either as a subcontractor or as employees. And if they don't, they have to do something for us. And that money should be put into something for training. Make sure that the next time we have somebody that's already trained and ready to go to work. So I don't think
I'll pull the
that
rest.
Section 3 can let us do it, because that's not HUD money. It's 25%. Yeah.
Yep, all right, next on the agenda, we have, a resolution,
Thank you, by the way.
No, thank you, Dr. Cook. I mean, not
Dr. Cook. All right, Doctor.
Dr. Cook.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Isom, this is basically approval of the agreement with the American Federation of State county and municipal employees. This is AFSCME, which are the general employees. We've had a wage reopener with the AFSCME group, which represents the Public Works, Water Department, and some clerical people. And through our wage reopener, they have come with a tentative agreement. The terms of the agreement are as follows: 2% wage increase with no retroactivity, reinstatement of the following holidays: Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, day after Thanksgiving, and Christmas. The employees regularly scheduled to work on those holidays will receive time and a half, and employees who are called in on the proposed holiday will be compensated at time and 1/2 with no holiday pay. This is what we're proposing. We need to come get commission approval so that we can prepare the documents to be signed by both parties on behalf of the AFSCME group and the city of Benton Harbor.
We have copies of it.
These are union employees?
These are union employees, yes, sir. That's the AFSCME is their union, correct.
Chair, could you ask city manager to explain to me what the last one, which says no, with no holiday pay?
So what has happened in the past, Commissioner Henry, is that when a person comes in, if you get paid holiday pay, you're getting paid for a day that you're off that you would actually normally be working, so it's a holiday. If you come in on that day, you're going to be compensated at time and a half. But what we're not going to get into is double time or triple time for that day. So if you come in and work 6 hours, you get paid time and a half for 6 hours, but you won't get the holiday pay that the person who does not come in gets. So you'll get your pay at time and a half on that holiday.
So if you schedule to work
Mhm.
and it's a holiday,
Correct.
you get time and a half.
Correct. And if you're called in on a holiday, you
And
get
if
time
you
and a
call
half.
in on a holiday,
Correct.
well, when do you get holiday pay?
If you're not called in, so the biggest one is during the wintertime. So if a person, for example, let's say even in the wintertime, if they don't come, if we're off on Thanksgiving and it doesn't snow, everybody in the union would get their regular rate of pay for that day, 8 hours. Currently, the way it sits, they don't. They don't get any holiday pay. They're furloughed right now. That was the emergency manager's edict. They were furloughed that day for every holiday that they had. So now, what we're saying is we're going to try to get back some of what was taken away. We're going to give half the holidays back, especially the ones that impact them the most around Thanksgiving and Christmas, because honestly, you've got Christmas Eve, and New Year's Day all that fall in one paycheck. So that's so you're losing 30% of your pay. But what we're saying now is on those 3 days, they would be compensated at a regular day like they were here. If they come in on that day, the holiday pay goes away and then time and a half kicks in.
Instead of half and half, paying holiday.
Exactly. That's exactly correct.
Would be,
Triple time would be double time and a half. Right.
as a union employee.
You know the
So
truth.
they automatically get Christmas off, so now they're getting the day after Christmas and Thanksgiving.
They get Thanksgiving. They
They
get
get Thanksgiving.
they
and
get Christmas Eve and
off.
Christmas. They
Right.
get off. They weren't getting paid for it at all.
Right.
Okay. Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving were designated as holidays. Before they weren't. So now the day after Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving they're getting paid for it.
Okay.
Too bad legislative
Okay.
government.
And this is all of ASME, that's police,
No,
No.
that's FOP.
I mean,
This is Public Works,
Public Works,
Water,
and Water Department, and,
yeah. Everybody in those groups, yes ma'am, in those departments.
could you supply us with some more information about Who's in those departments?
I can about name them all right now, because it's
No,
like
don't name
7.
them, cause I won't remember what you said.
I can put the
If you
names,
give- If
I'll put
you
the
give it to
names
me
with
in
that.
writing,
Yeah.
and I'll know what position
Yep.
they are in.
I'll get you the names of the AFSCME employees and where they are.
That would be
Okay?
wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
Chair, question. Number of the union employees, and it also financially, since we also will deal with non-union issues, the financial portfolio for the city, is it such that we are out of crisis, that because one of the things that we know currently with the situation with the school board and their finances, we cannot prematurely step forward and make we talk about a 2% wage increase, and then we also gonna have to come back and readdress the non-union. Are we financially in a position for that? And it seems like you're restoring the holidays with, I keep seeing still time and 1/2 compensation for proposed holidays. What is holiday pay different from the time and a half? Because you also make a statement with no holiday pay, so it would be compensated at time and 1/2 with no holiday pay.
Holiday pay is your regular rate. So you're not working and you're getting paid as if you're here. If you come in on that day, if you're called into work, there's an emergency or something, you're compensated at time and 1/2 for that day versus just the regular pay. So you would get, again, if you work 6 hours, you're getting paid for 9, essentially. But you're not getting that plus the 8 hours or the 7.5 hours that you're regularly scheduled. So you get one or the other.
Okay. The number of AFSCME employees?
It's less than 15.
Okay.
Yeah, without, off the top of my head, 3, 6, 9, it's about 12, I think it's 11 or 12 people.
And what would this increase cost us annually?
$1,700. Their rate of pay is low. It's about $1,700 total.
So $1,700 annually.
Yeah, well, and for this specific one, it'll increase what we, over from this year to next year, $1,700.
Okay, if we went from, for 2020 January to 2020 December, it would be $1,700?
It would be $1,700 more per fiscal year. So from July 1 to June 30th.
And our financial profile, are we in a position to give out raises to union and non-union?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have weathered the brunt of the bad storm. We're still in the storm. I don't want people to think that we're not. But the lawsuits, was the biggest one, the bigger part of pension contributions, that kind of stuff, we've gotten past that.
So now we have building financial reserves.
We have built and increased our fund balance each year for the last 5 years now.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Next we have, resolution, attorney invoices.
It's not a resolution. It shouldn't have been a resolution. I don't know why it was.
Discussion.
Yes, a discussion.
Discussion, attorney invoices.
Yeah, there is, I know there was a question about the attorney invoices, and you got one more of those. I made a copy of a bunch of them. Okay. So, okay. Commissioner Anderson, do you have one?
Well,
Did you get one of these? About the attorney invoice, because I know there was questions about the attorney invoices. And, okay. Okay.
Did you email it? Did you email it?
I just got it today, so I got it this afternoon. I asked for it, but I just got it this afternoon. I can email it. I'm gonna get a hard copy of it right now. But what I want to do, I know there were questions about the attorneys invoices that were on the bill listing. And the the challenge with doing them in advance of voting on them is that we only meet once a month. And they're not like, okay, we're gonna get them at the first of the month. They come in sporadically, they come in at different times. So what I was gonna do is, again, is go over them just quickly. These were the ones that were approved at the last meeting, because I don't have any future ones. We don't. But to just let you know or see what was actually on the last group of invoices relative to what was done by and the time frame that they were done in from the attorneys. So what you see is you've got one from Bloom Sluggett. Bloom Sluggett is handling our issue that we have with the income tax group. That's the group that's the group that is appealing the income tax that are in the 425 agreement. They are handling that. So that's what you see relative to that. As it stands right now, we've won those cases, but they're still appealing them. So that's why they continue to have dollars that come from their activities. What you see from Bittner Jennings is related to, one is related to union and grievance issues. This is the stuff we just kind of started talking about. We talked about finalizing the union contract. That's the vast majority of this for Attorney Hearns. Attorney Rock, who also submitted one from Bittner Jennings, is related to ordinance work that comes from the Public Safety Department. Not only ordinance work, but also tickets, going to court with officers and things of that nature. So that's what's in this in Bittner Jennings for the for ordinance violations. And that is, so you have one for May and then you have one for April. So there are two separate months for the same activity of ordinance while they bill monthly. And so we got April and May's in and it went to the commission. So if there are any questions relative to these as well. And then there's the last one, which is Sutter Law Firm, who is handling our negotiations and issues that we have with public safety. So those are the attorney invoices that were presented and voted on Monday relative to what activities they've done. Like I said, I wish I could have the ones now that are going to show up at the next meeting, but I don't have them, and we won't have another meeting before the commission meeting, which is on the 1st of July. So from a timing standpoint, I can't give you preliminarily what I don't have. Yeah. But I know there's been questions about the attorney invoices, so I wanted to present them to you so you would see exactly what's going on with them.
We'll start getting these on a regular basis.
We'll do it every Personnel Finance Committee meeting, so you'll see all. Absolutely.
Wow.
Chair. I'm sorry. Through the chair. I was looking through, so some of the things that fall off, you said the lawsuits. I didn't see any interaction on that. I guess that may be outside of this. And then also I see that as a former sergeant and police officer and a supporter of the Fraternal Order of Police, that we would have a grievance with them that requires, they support the families who understand we're paying for a grievance between the Fraternal Order of Police and the city or Chief McGinnis. The last page of the invoice dated 6/9/2019.
Yeah, so the Fraternal Order Police represent the public safety officers. as well as the sergeants. If there is a dispute or disagreement, then yeah, they file a grievance and it's handled. And then we have an attorney come in if necessary. A lot of times, to the credit of Director McGinnis and Deputy Director Clark and Deputy Director Phelps, we don't get to the point where we have to have where the attorney gets involved. We usually settle them at the local level because we have a great rapport with the representative, the business rep from the FOP. So this one is a grievance that was filed. But like I said, a lot of them, they don't get to that point.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem seats on historical preservation of finance directors. Here, 977 Pavone. But, start. Vacant lot. All right. So, my real question is today is about this one here. Oh, man. Any of them that have anything to do with citations or violating like the ordinance, telephone conference with Judge Sherrod, photos for legal dumping, tickets, review and authorize, ordinance violations. Do we not get this back in some kind of a formal fashion from the person who did the criminal act? Do they put that far as a fee and fine penalties? And do we cover that in any kind of way when they go to court? Is that part of the fees and fines and all that kind of stuff?
So there is an amount that will come back to the city when they pay their fees and fines. But again, most of the time, because we try to be compassionate, there are several people who've taken fines have been allowed payment plans. So it's not coming back in as fast as it's going out, but it's getting there.
So that money will be recovered, all the attorney fees and for violations and all that?
For the prosecution, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somehow, when that comes back in, the question becomes, how is that listed?
That comes in under the ordinance, or there's a fines and forfeitures section.
Fines, fees, and forfeitures in the general fund that comes back through.
Okay,
As
so
revenue.
my question is, to the chair, it goes out as fines and fees and expenditures. So does it go back into that same pot, or does it come, because the general fund is paying it now?
Correct.
When it comes back, it does not automatically go to the police department? Right?
No,
No.
it goes into the
It
general.
goes into the general fund.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's listed as such?
It is listed as such, yes, sir.
Thank you.
On the one from Bruce Silcher,
Mm-hmm.
see several on Allison Payne.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, from previous experience. I know Allison Payne represents the firefighter.
Yeah.
What is it's quite a few, are they in arbitration?
So what we have is a former firefighter has filed a complaint against the city about a cost of living adjustment that he believes he is to receive. He has enlisted the help of Allison Patton because he knows her from previous relationships with the IFAA. And so that's why you see her name on there, is that she is his representative. Yeah, but there is no International Association of Firefighters, and she's not their representative for the city. But that is the person that he reached out to and grabbed to do the work that he needs as it relates to his case.
The case ongoing?
It is. We have there's a mediation set up for it in August. So, yeah, we're going to mediation first and then see if there's resolution. If not, it may end up going to court.
Moving on, next we have
have discussion, pension.
All right, let me go back. Oh. All right. I had mentioned this last month to do to kind of give you an idea of what we deal with, or what we're dealing with from a pension standpoint. Just quickly, former Emergency Manager Saunders closed the city's defined benefit DB plan to move the administration of the pension system to the Municipal Employees Retirement System, also known as MERS. Also, all new employees were enrolled in the hybrid retirement plan. The employees that were participants in the DB plan received a frozen benefit. It was equal to what you would have received had you retired as of August 23rd, 2013, regardless of whether you had reached the requisite number of years and or age. So they calculated it as if you retired early, and there's a frozen benefit that awaits people once they retire. But the second half of your, or the next part of your tenure here, you would actually work under the hybrid plan. He also reduced the multipliers. So general non-union, which are typically the management, got reduced from 2.25 to 1.0. Union went from 2.25, which is the absentee group, 2.25 to 1.5. Police went from 2.5 to 2.0. The city's plan currently is at 41.7% funded, so that's the total fund. That's both non-union and non-union, general, absentee, and public safety. As of December 31st, 2017, it's an increase of 4% from the year prior. As a result, it's anticipated that the funding level will reach a combined 60% in approximately 2034. So that graph that you see over on the side shows that, and I don't have my pointer, but the hard line that's up top, not the hash one, at the 7.75, shows that we will get to 100, we'll get to 60% in 2034.
14 years.
Yep. So roughly 15 years from now, we'll be at 60%. So that puts us, so like I said, 2034, that puts us about right here. We'll get to that 60%. However, the decisions made related to pension plans prior to 2013 have adversely affected the plan as follows. In the year 2018 to 2013, low levels of contributions were made into the pension plan, which included 3 years with 0% contributed of the annual required contribution. What that means is that we were required to put a certain amount of money in. We did none of it. So just to show you, this is out of the MERS report. This is for the general employees. So this down here shows you 2008 to 2013. In 2013, we didn't contribute. 2011, we didn't contribute. 2010, we didn't contribute. And even prior to, we contribute 1%, 12%, 28%. What that means is that the monies that were needed to keep the pension going with the people who retired was not being given to the plan, so the assets that were in the plan were used to make up the difference. So thus the plan funding level dropped. That's the general side. Police and fire. You contributed gangbusters in 2008, but didn't do a doggone thing the rest of the other 5 years. Even though there is a millage that is levied to do this, 0%, 0%, 0% in 10, 11, and 13.
What happened? They just
State dragging us
You
down.
had monies that you needed to operate with, and you had an obligation for them, you didn't do it. This was what you were required to do. Now mind you, this is the annual contribution of $400,000 up to $785,000. That's what the city would have to put in absent the investment return and the money that was put in by the employees and the money that was garnered from the income, not income tax, but the levy on taxes. Rich benefits are being paid out to current retirees as the pension plans in place when they retired included high multipliers, lower employee contribution, final average compensations that included all wages, and spiking of final average compensations that existed prior to MERS administering the plan. So what that, in a nutshell, says was people got sweetheart deals where the multiplier was enhanced. You didn't have to put in much money. You had to put in 3%. Right now, we're required, all employees are required at a minimum for 10%. Final average compensations were inflated so that when you got ready to retire, you would retire, say you made $65,000 this year, you retired on a rate of $85,000. And you included all wages, so you could work that holiday pay we just talked about, it would be banked and it would be included to increase your final wage so that your number was increased. Also, there are more individuals now retired and receiving richer pension benefits than the active employees that are currently contributing. There are 89 retirees and there are 23 active employees contributing to the plan. This is Social Security on a minor scale. So just to show you, like I said, the 89 retirees get $2 million annually. So all the employees that we retired get about $2 million. In 2016, 25 of the 89 accounted for 1.15 of the annual payments. So the other 64 employees split $600,000. These retirees have enhanced multipliers that range from 3% to 10% tied to the CPI, and some are unlimited. So if the CPI, which will probably never happen, were to go up 100%, their pension would double and we would have to pay. And to understand, these are all members of the defined benefit plans. They're not in the hybrid plan that we are now. So if you look at it, here's where we are. You have 89 people that are receiving $2.14 million. You got 47 active people that are participating, but only 25, 48, 16. Those are the ones that are retired, but these are the ones that are basically participating in it. You only have 23 people given to these 89 people. Yeah. So what that says is this, totally, by the year 2039, this dark line down here, we will be paying about $2.25 million in pension payments. Then we go back to normalcy in 2039. Our annual budget is $7 million. 2.25 million of that in the year 2038-ish will be going strictly for pension. So 1/3 of what you have, unless things change, is going to be obligated to your pension payment. That's if you don't hire new people. That's if you don't get, and it also is, unfortunately, it may be reduced because people may die, depending on what happens. But what you got is 2039, so you got another 20 years till the pension goes back to normalcy, like we said. So you'll be making a contribution of about $200,000 a year. So you'll free up $1.9 million out of your budget. So when we talk about how hard it is to do stuff, imagine if we could do another $1.9 million in the budget free to do more work. So what we've been doing is we contributed annually, it ranges from $600,000 to $1 million, depending on what the ARC is. And that's $600 to $1 million more, than it was contributed in the 5-year period that preceded that 2008 to 2013 year. We've done $600 to $1 million more. We made major changes, the multiplier got reduced, so everybody now is a member of the hybrid plan. So a lot of us have taken a wallop on our pension. And so we reduced the multiplier, The contribution rate was raised from 3% to 10%. Limited final average compensation to include only work time. So overtime doesn't count, sick time doesn't count, vacation time doesn't count, and not any other non-working compensation. Retroactivity, if there was longevity, would not be counted towards your final average compensation. And instituted a hybrid retirement plan, which is a defined contribution portion. So the onus now is on the employee, not the city, to reduce what we would have, because if we'd have kept going the way we were, we would have basically we would have been upside down. We'd have probably been bankrupt. Yep.
The hybrid plan is helping fund
The hybrid plan right now is at 125% funded.
okay.
So it's fine. Our issue is not the current employee. Our issue is the legacy cost of the older employee that nobody's contributing to because they're getting their money, but nobody's in the plan to contribute to it because it's closed.
Stock market ain't doing.
And the stock market is not doing good. You're absolutely right. We're not getting 7% on return on investment. You're probably getting about 3 on a good day. So that helps. That does not help us as well. So just kind of a quick overview of where we are pension-wise. So you see exactly what we're up against going forward as a city.
Thank you, Chair. As the ASME asked for a reopener, was there a way, because this was done, and was anyone ever looked into legality or have it legally reviewed to see if there was some adjustments that could be made? I don't know if the emergency manager, Tony Saunders, had done that. The other thing that this says, that with this amount looming overhead, have we filled up the deficit of those years that the city was negligent in not paying into the pension? So that's the second part. And the final part would be, this also looks that we need to still move very judiciously, very frugal in terms of our expenditure, because we still have a debt ratio that's still looming and has a potential to increase, and that the fact that services need to be provided, that individuals are going to still be hired. How are we going to reconcile that? One, we got to, in terms of one, can this be reopened and reevaluated? Two, have we covered the deficits of those years? And the final part, does this not propose a shadow over our finances?
So to answer the first part of that question is, it was looked at to see if there was any adjustment that could be made. But because that's a contractual obligation between the city and the employees that you were represented by, and that were represented by the unions and or were given the enhanced benefits, in order to break that, you would have had to file bankruptcy. I.e. what Detroit had to do.
Okay, the enhanced benefits, was that something sanctioned through the chair by the commission at that time? How?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the enhancements were brought to the commission either through the collective bargaining agreement or a supplemental agreement that was presented on behalf of the non-union employees. So those that didn't have a contract. The second part you asked about it, the beauty of it, if there is a beauty of it, if you want to say, is that MERS allows us to amortize this over time. We can flatten it and extend it out. But if we were to pay it all at one time, we're talking about $11 million right now. That would have to be put in that plan, unless somebody got a printing press somewhere. That would have to be put in that plan to make it solvent right now, make it 100% funded. Typically, MERS doesn't take plans that are under 80%, they did for us, and we were at the time when we went there about 39%, 35 to 39% funded. So we've grown, and we've made strides. Do we have to walk judiciously? Absolutely. So that's why we can't, what you end up having, as I talked about, the double time and a half, the inclusion of time that you took off. So all dollars that you accounted for going into the pension payments or pension obligation are not being added to that. That was one of the things that was done. So yeah, we have to walk cautiously, and there's going to come a time again where raises may not happen. Because one other thing we have to look at is we don't know when the next recession is going to happen. And we don't know what values on properties are going to do and or development that's going to be future. So that helps offset that cost. So one thing we do know, we know this number because the defined benefit is something that's not going to change. The hybrid is fine. We know that the defined benefit is out there. So that's what we have to be cognizant of until that goes away. And like I said, it's either through people falling off or we paying back the obligation that we owe, and then we go back to normalcy. Yep.
Quick background on how those, what was it, 25?
Yeah, 25.
And how many of them was firefighters? How many 25?
Probably 16 of them, at least 15, 16 of them.
Back during that time, the fire department worked 24-hour shifts. So what they were doing, one would call in sick, sick time.
All planned.
The other one come in on overtime. Get 24 hours at time and a half.
At time and a half, or double time, depending if they came in on Sunday.
Came on holiday, it was double time and a half. And all that, what they did, they jacked up their salaries.
Yep.
Especially the ones who had, the older ones, who had comp time and holiday stuff on the books and stuff. So, and then they knew that they were going to be going out in the next so many years. So they started building that. What was the last 3-year compensation?
It was the highest three of the last 5.
So that's where I think back then, if the commission and whoever was managing then would have been wise enough to say, hey, wait a minute, this you know, you jacking up the end thing on us, where they could have said, hey, you come in on a 24-hour shift overtime, none of that, you know, it should have been regular time.
Something,
you know, but it's too late now.
And to throw out too, if a person, so let's say the person that came in, say the person who had time off was a captain. The person who came in got captain's rate. The lowest rate closest to what they had at captain's rate, time and a half or double time, depending on how long they worked. Yeah. Yeah.
So they had 24 hours to
Yeah.
a day to
sit and think.
On how to basically.
Like I've said before, you have retirees now making more money than deputy directors make right now. Retired. And they're steady, and actually took us to task on a cost of living adjustment because they felt that they were entitled to it.
They get that in Social
And they get it.
Social Security too?
If they're old enough. Because you got a lot of these guys that retired at age like 45.
Must be working 24-hour shift. You know, they come in, no fire happen, you can still get your 8 hours of sleep in, and you're off for the next couple of days. A lot of them had 40-hour
Jobs.
week jobs.
Yeah.
You know, so they would go work those. So they get Social Security plus the, you know, $60,000, $70,000 a year.
A lot of the guys were young enough. You came in at 20, you worked 25 years, you get off, that's 45 years old. You start working at another job, you work another 20 years, 60 years, you draw another pension. So now you got 2 pensions, Social Security. So that's what it is.
Point of clarity, but it's also law enforcement as well, or just fire department?
Law enforcement, they get too much. They
Yeah.
get I think the enhanced pension for the the multiplier.
Right, a lot of the police side of it got enhanced multipliers with caps on them. And they weren't, the number that they started at wasn't so egregiously outlandish. I mean, you had people who would work and say 75, and then their last year, 130. So you average that across the three. So that's 150 plus 130, it's 310, that's $100,000. At whatever your years of service was and your multiplier enhancement was, voila. So that's why you got people making $75,000 retired, waiting on a check from the city of Benton Harbor. Absolutely, and 23, as Mike just said, we're 23 people paying into that. Yeah.
What's the highest on the your employee pension? What?
60,000. 56, $60,000. Yeah. Yeah.
How did that?
That was when then city manager Marsh was trying to reduce the workforce and got rid of the ones that were at least 52 years of age, had at least 20 years in. He enhanced them to 2.6 and didn't penalize them for years of service. Yeah. So
The salary, how much was his salary?
60. He left it, yeah.
Basically about 100% of it.
Well, and he worked, that one was one that was like 35 years of service. So that number times your multiplier gets your number up there. Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Hoy?
Yeah, this really is interesting, but wasn't there an agreement with the Harbor Shores agreement that there was X amount of funds that was to go for recreation, and then this emergency manager took that money and to help take care of the pension, and then that was only for so many years, and now that is gone? Is that, am I going close?
It was the Whirlpool contribution that was taken by then emergency manager Harris. Took the money, the 200,000, which then inflated to 3, took it and put it toward the pension payment.
And that's gone though, it was only for so many years?
It's for 12 years and that ends in 2022, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. 2022 or 2023. So another 4 to 5 years.
From Tim Seats. Dwayne Seats from Love Unlimited from Wall Street.
I'm gonna come visit you tonight.
All right, I'll see you in a minute. Hey, thing that we're not speaking about is the fact that not only do they get the pension, but if they die, their spouse gets the whole pension.
This is true. As long as they live.
And as long as they live, they'll receive the same benefit
With the same enhancement.
with the same enhancement. So if, say for instance, they went and got them a young girl, married them, you know, I mean, I ain't gonna use it unless you say it, last. But if they were about 65 and went and got somebody 30 and married them,
You just look young.
yeah, I mean, they get 30 years old, they still receive the same benefit with the same escalators and everything else. My hope is that, and the question I wanted to ask was, every year, the employee gave into the pension. So why would it say 0 if the employee was given? Was there a certain amount of money that was given by the employee that we did not put in and we were holding back?
Yep.
Yes. As I said, all monies at that time were being utilized for operations. They should have gone, as you said, to the pension, the monies that the employees paid, the money, like I said, that was levied on the residents, did not go to the pension where it was supposed to. So you got $100,000 roughly each year from the police and fire pension. That's a millage. Didn't go to that fund. The money, like you said, that was every employee gave on their check, see it, didn't go to that fund. Did not.
Verification, who was the city manager at that time?
You know,
in 2008, Pete Mitchell left in March of 2008. Richard Marsh came in and was here through September of 2009. Joe Harris came in April 1st. Ron Carter came, then Joe Harris came in April of 2010. And then Tony Saunders in 2013.
Is that not illegal? Because if I'm giving money to my 401k and it's not making it to the destination, or if I'm giving money to my pension and it's not making it to the destination, I mean, I understand Richard Marsh was part of the play, and the state was part of the play too, because some years that I seen up there, the state was here, and we didn't give a dime to the pension program.
10 through 13.
10 through 13. I think that's illegal. I don't think you can, I mean, if we were a regular employer, like, say for instance, we had a medical profession, and they were paying into a pension program, and they retired, and none of the money ever went to the pension program, they would arrest the owner. So I'm trying to find out how it's legal for us to even have had this going on, and now we're so far in debt, it's like a payback. I got the floor, brother. We should have, it's almost borderline illegal, because what if you never had the money to pay back? So who gives the okay to use pension money or 401k money?
Dwight Pete Mitchell. You got a park in the bathroom. You got a park. You got a park in the
No
bathroom.
one,
Absolutely. No one does.
It's a history lesson here. Years ago, and that was probably one of the first, I believe, Wilson Cook's administration or somebody's, but pension money was used for the general fund, and the unions ended up, they sued the city, and there was a court
Mandate.
Court mandate. The court, and it went for 25 years. It was like a couple of $1 million, I believe. And it took 25 years that they had to levy on the taxpayers to pay it back. So on top of the pension levy that they was having,
They were paying
there was
that
a
back.
court-ordered percentage that was getting taken out of taxes.
And to just let you know, Commissioner Seats, there were people who were moments away from filing suit against the city had we not moved to MERS, because they were not confident that the city could handle the pension and what needed to be done. And the only thing that staved that off was the fact that MERS came into play.
Is there any way we can rename that park the Pete Mitchell Tax Park? That's it. It's
Still paying for it.
Yeah, but so that, as you know, Commissioner Singleton said, there are history lessons all through this that have come to roost, and in honor of Commissioner Henry, you couldn't kick the can no more. You had to it had to be picked up and disposed of and taken care of. So that's where we are. We can go on to the next item unless you got some more questions.
One question, is there a statute of limitation on that? So can we, or is it closed? You can't pursue that?
It's
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Next, we have on the agenda, termination of lawn care contract. We put that on there. We talked to the lawn care person. He didn't understand what happened. Let's see. He was, termination of his contract. He's supposed to have been cutting city lots, but he never got a list. Now, I don't know, can we speak on that?
I can, and I think
I know.
Director McGinnis probably could speak a little bit
Yes.
better. But what happened was the gentleman, we had a vendor agreement with him that if he were used for the lots to be cut, he would get a certain amount, he would get whatever he said he was going to get. What happened was, following, when we did that, He then came in to City Hall and basically was demanding a list of what was going to be done. It was explained to him that the list was going to be generated and he would get it. He then became very belligerent to some of the employees that are that work here. And we explained to him, it was explained to him that, hey, you gotta wait till we get the list and give it to you. He was then out on the streets following employees around, demanding that you gotta do this, you need to do this, you better do this. He came back into City Hall and he came into my office as well as the Public Safety Department, very, very aggressive and very, very belligerent. So we were at that time at conversation with Director McGinnis, and the thought was, if that's the mannerism in which you're going to conduct your business, we would rather not use you at all. And so that's what happened. It wasn't that we were trying to not give him anything. It was just he had never worked for us.
Right.
And we were trying to explain to him the process of working for the city and what was going on. And again, he pushed the panic button way before it was necessary, to the point where he, like I said, I cannot have people coming in here disrespecting and hollering at young ladies who are just trying to explain to him what the issue is and how the thing how the process goes.
Was it some written complaints made against some of the?
There were complaints.
Just in case we end up in some type of litigation.
Yeah.
She can, I know she ain't gonna want to, but she can speak for herself. There's one right there.
Yeah, there was that one, and then, like I said, in my office, Lisa made a complaint to me. So yeah, there were two complaints I know. Specifically, Darlene was the other one that he was following out on the road. And I don't know if she made a complaint to Director McGinnis or formalized it, but I know those two did. Yeah.
Who covered it? Did you send a letter?
We told him, Director McGinnis sent a letter letting him know, and we move on from there. Like I said, it's not that we're trying not to use him or anything, but there's decorum that he needs to follow when he comes in.
Right.
And there's a method to doing business that the expectation is, we'll work with you. We'll bend over backwards to work with you, but you can't come in and cussing people out. You can't come in here yelling at people at the top of your voice, demanding what's going to be done. So,
I would, if it's terminated because the contract was signed by, you customarily, you signed the contract.
correct. And so understand that the agreement is a vendor agreement. If you perform the service, this is what you get. There is nothing in there that says you're guaranteed anything.
No, I'm talking about if you send out a letter saying this contract is terminated.
That was sent out.
Right. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying, it probably should have been sent out from the manager. You signed it.
Okay.
But, I mean.
Yeah. So the grass cutting abatement stuff originates out of public safety. He handled it. I'm fine with that if it was an issue of where it came from, but it needed to come from the city. So it did come from Director McGinnis. So, yep.
Just in case, you end up in court.
Okay.
Mr. Henry?
I heard this story from several different people. Is it documented that he actually cursed out some people? Or is it documented that he was loud?
No, he used profanity, Commissioner. He did. He did do that. I was in my office when he came in, and Ms. Galladay was talking to him, and he got really belligerent. And I said, we cannot do business with him if that's the way he's going to come in and treat employees who are only trying to explain to him, here's how the process works. To come in and start threatening, well, you don't know who you mess with, I'm this, so we're not going to do that. That's wrong. And again, so we said, whoa, first time, she complained, but we still moved forward. He came back and did it again, this time on another side of the building. So again, I don't know people who tell on themselves, but they'll tell you what they want you to hear. I know what happened. He came in here and he acted up. So again, I had a conversation with someone who knows him, who said, okay, here's what we can do. I'm willing to talk to the man. I have no problem with that, but he's got to come ready to do business, not come and demanding to tell us what we're going to do.
I can answer that. On the night, on the morning that he yelled at my assistant, Lisa, who, of course, let's keep a low profile, I hear yelling, or I'm thinking it's an officer dealing with an irate person in the lobby from a complaint. I didn't find out till later, till we sat down that Thursday meeting, that he was yelling at her. I heard that out the door of my office. Again, it's not uncommon for people coming to the police department with a complaint. They're upset, they calm down. I had no idea he was yelling at her like that. And she might not want to say nothing, but he was yelling at her like that.
Well, did he cuss you too, Lisa?
It doesn't,
Yeah, it do, because that's what I'm asking for.
that don't matter.
So,
He cuss you, Lisa?
He didn't cuss me, but he was.
Loud. Okay.
I'll come up.
Dr. Time, okay.
It's just the way you talk to people, you know? You gotta talk to people.
If that was the case, a lot of these people here don't talk to people correctly. So, you know, fire somebody because they don't talk correctly, don't say what they're supposed to say.
Yep.
They're irate because they came in and everybody got a job, but I don't think you guys should even be talking about this man without him being here. Just like that police officer, I think he should be here. When y'all talked about it the other night. I asked you for his phone number, I can't get his phone number, but I want to talk to that officer myself personally. Because I had conversations with him before about other things, but just to be for real, I want to know what happened. And you don't get a chance to know what happened if you keep throwing people out the back door before anybody get a chance to even see what even happened. How could y'all say it was okay and you didn't have all the information? How can you say this is okay if you really don't have a man here to fight for, to speak up for his own self? Yeah, black men do get loud, especially when they feel like they're being mistreated about something. And if you don't like that, then none of y'all should be in those seats.
That's not.
I ain't talking about your sister. Because he was out of place, through the chair, he was out of place if he hollered at the sister for any reason. But that ain't enough to say,
It wasn't just me.
okay, well, it wasn't just you. So he didn't ever even work for you guys, so how do you get a letter to be fired or any of that stuff? What is that? I think you guys need to talk to that brother, just like I need to talk to that police officer. Maybe I can get his number from one of you guys so I can ask a question as a concerned citizen, not as a complainer, not as somebody was trying to create some problem in nobody's life. But you don't just keep firing people and you don't have no real full understanding of what's going on.
Chair,
I think Mr. Tynes had his hand up.
before you, kind of. So the question to the chair, one is a vendor, and seasonal vendors are not guaranteed work because there's nothing written in that part. It's based on if the service is required or needed at that time. Two, there is a standard of professionalism and operations that have to be done when it's a contractual business relationship. Third is that one of the things as a business owner, that one of the things is the safety and comfort of the employee is an issue too, that they have to also be safe and not feeling threatened. And those are just some guidelines in terms of, this from the state and from the feds. So in terms of the details, I don't know about the details, but in terms of vendors have to carry themselves in a business-like manner. Two employees cannot feel threatened, and there's no law that says people have to be given work or given jobs. So in terms of a business professional thing, in terms of perspective, that if it's based on those issues and the thing that the Commissioner Singleton was issued, written documentation is going to be key and essential. And as a vendor, in terms of legal recourse, is going to be limited, especially a seasonal vendor.
Okay. I'm just going to basically, Mr. Tynes just said it all. I don't have a problem. I understand growing up in this community what happens, but I will not let any man disrespect any woman in this organization for any reason. Especially if it's all they were trying to do was explain the process. They weren't belligerent, they weren't ignorant, they weren't getting anywhere, they weren't acting any way out of sort. And as a man to a woman, that won't happen. I will not let that happen. I wouldn't let it happen to my sister, my niece, my brother, and any woman, any female employee. So that gentleman, when he came in the first time, he got a pass. He came back the second time. You don't get a second time for that. If you can't correct your actions then I don't have to deal with you. As Mr. Tynes said, you're not guaranteed anything other than an opportunity, and you blew it. That's where we are.
Well, that's what I, through the chair, the same kind of opportunity is the same thing I thought about B and Z. They went past the point of no return as far as I was concerned when the sand left the beach and went to the company. Now this is just me, and I know I'm just a concerned citizen. That's all I am. Can't see behind that sand, but that's all I am. I wouldn't want anybody, I wouldn't care if it's a woman to be disrespected, but I know there's a lot of disrespect going on right here. I counted through the chair sent city manager down to put me out of a meeting. I thought that was way out of place. But it happened. We gotta, when it comes to black men, y'all gonna have to come up with, you ain't treating us like no white folks, but that ain't no happen. And we don't talk like white folks, and we do raise our voice when we have concerns that then turned into a complaint. Everybody getting to work, he ain't getting no work. Long before the argument even, or the program even started. Everybody else, I bet you, B and Z got their contract and didn't have to say a word, just probably came in and kept what they had to do. And that's what he should have got. That's my opinion. And I know it should mean something to somebody other than me. I'll apologize for it. You should not have did that to you. But nobody should be disrespected. Right. And especially in here. And if you guys sit up and let somebody disrespect a man in here, I'm gonna say something to you. Since we can jump up and take care of the little kids and take care of the women, and you better try to take care of us.
One thing, Mr. Director, again, so he's doing no going back, no trying to come to a compromise, no, has he came back and said something to you?
No. Nope.
Question on the chair. need the understanding that with the number of individuals who can provide, and this was isolated case, say lawn service or any type of service or any type of work, why is it that we go so hard to hire or try to work with people who may have poor work ethics, have unprofessional conduct, behavior? I mean, we even have that in our youth and our students when there are so many people who have trying to work hard to get jobs who don't have jobs, that we go out of our way, that I see this pattern. I may be totally wrong, but in the business area that we go hard for people and, who didn't pass a drug test, give him another chance, or he stole, give him another chance. But the individual who has done no wrong, or the student who has done no wrong, still trying to get a job. So I just always try to figure that out. And as a pastor, I always try to figure it out when I teach Revelations, that they always ask me, what, God kicked him out of heaven, but what if he changed?
All right, next, we just got this last thing on here. 5G discussion. That was big, broad, and we want to try to keep on pushing this. I know, City Man, have you ever heard of 5G? Have you?
I've heard of it. I didn't know what.
I just put it on there.
Okay.
It's a big discussion. Now, well, first of all, AT&T, I don't know, is 5G here now in the city by Verizon? I know AT&T got us on the list. Only place in Michigan.
I may have to punt on this one to my gentleman on the other side.
Is it 5G in the city of Benton Harbor right now?
It's in development, it's not here.
Okay.
Ann Arbor, Detroit, Grand Rapids, some areas in Kalamazoo, not yet here.
Not yet here.
No. It's very heavy in the Ann Arbor area because the self-driving cars, the testing for that, they need the 5G service to make those work. So, like I said, you'll find it in those major areas and where the auto industry is right now in Michigan.
Do you know if the Chair mentioned that their community have to, like, they have to get permits and go through planning and all that stuff to?
As far as I'm aware, and I don't know what our antenna tower contracts say, but all they're doing is taking existing 3G and 4G antennas, changing them out to 5G, and moving forward. And so I don't know. I know we have a couple antennas in the city for cell phone service, but I don't know what those look like as to whether or not we could limit them from taking the 4G antenna off, putting the 5 up, and moving on. That I don't know. We'd have to look at that.
Unless we pass some type of legislation to where they have to.
Yeah, the tower agreements now are basically for land space usage. They don't do anything as far as what they can or cannot do. It just basically says you will get X amount of space inside the city for agreed upon price, and it's for 10 years, and we'll renew it in 10 years. That's really the gist of what our agreements, our cell tower agreements say. But you can't do anything to destroy the integrity of the area around it. It speaks specifically to that, but it does not speak specifically to what can be put on there. As far as service goes, there are differing thoughts that utility companies, i.e. Michigan Gas, AEP, and or AT&T, have kind of, they're under the federal government, so local can't tell them what to do, and then there are some that say you can. So it's out there. I don't know what the definitive answer is though. So yeah, I know, like I said, I know our cell tower agreements are coming up, and again, they're about land space, how much you're gonna pay for it, and that's about it.
They can put what they want to.
As it's from our agreement, yeah, it's not, we don't have anything to do with that.
Chair? On that, we're going to be looking at that next May at the Michigan State Medical Society in terms on the state level. And the reason for that is that towers are being upgraded, and any new technology that's put up, like on Pipestone and Broadway, with those lights, they're not active 5G, but they have 5G capability, capacity. So all new developments of 5G, the issue is that there has been some health data that has been presented, which now has to be reviewed, and there's a debate going on there. So the current development on Pipestone is 5G compatible with that new development. You have your 5G in St. Joe, mobile 5G for the officers that do the pattern face recognition and driver's license recognition. That's 5G technology. The health concern becomes if you're too close to the 5G, it's more like a microwave, so it can cause some cellular damage, and that's what the issue is, and that's why there's been some communities who have fought its implementation. And so there's that going on, and on the reason why, so the medical community, we're trying to look at that data. What we knew that there was a battle between the United States, I believe in China, this company with an H, who actually is the technological leader in 5G, based out of over in Schaumburg, Illinois, and with 5G, it's a bidirectional flow of data. So all data that's sent out, the sending party can also get your information. So it's technology needs to be where it's not a spying tool, because whoever owns it has access to whatever goes through that bandwidth data space. So health-wise, there is an issue, but it's still like global warming. It's that, and so there's different stuff going on. So there is a health issue concern. It's being investigated. There's going to be a presentation in May next year, God willing, and there's some data out there, and I think it'd be wise and prudent that you be the city that has a resolution of legislation that before 5G is brought into the community, that it has to be presented before this body, before the commission.
Yeah, I would like to know who actually knows that there's 5G in Benton Harbor. I mean, you guys had paperwork for a long time, about 8 weeks, I'll put it like that, and you guys still didn't know what was going on, and you still asking questions about it. Now, my question is to the officer. He says it's not here. Is there some kind of proof of that? Or is there some proof of what you know? Have you read what it actually does to citizens? And then you say it's not here. I would like a little proof as to it not being here. I don't want to just take nobody, not that I don't trust your word, but I want to see some stuff on some paper. You guys ought to have all of this read and understood by now, but if you don't, I'm going to ask as a concerned citizen that you pull that piece of paper away from up under your bed and read it. I'm going to ask the officers to do their job too. Just because you have a paper don't mean you read it. You told me you didn't read it. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. We need a full understanding of what's going on. We don't need somebody to just say, it's not here, when the fact of it is, it could be. I'd like to see or know in writing that it's not here. Then it would ease this brain. Thank you. Can you do that through the chair?
Yeah, we'll do some research on that for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Duncan.
I'm glad to hear that Dr. Times and his colleagues are looking into it, because it is something that's, grave, and it's not on the towers. They're on the regular light posts in the city. And yes, they are here, Clark. There's some already on Main Street, some by the high school, so they are here already. And believe me, from everything that I've read, that the radiation that your body absorbs is deadly. It's not just deadly to humans, it's deadly to anything that God made. So, other communities have went to court and asked them to not do it in their community. I'm not sure what we need to do, but I think we just all need to do our research and just keep talking about this until we all are in the understanding of what we have. Thank you.
Chair, so clarification, on the state, I did ask in terms of Berrien County, you have, again, I'll say that you have the technology there, but to run the 5G through it, being active, it's not supposed to be active, but the technology is here, so it's a flick of a switch that they can turn these new technologies, these new things that you said on the lights and things, that has 5G capability, but it's not supposed to be active as of this recent May, when I was in Kalamazoo, when all the state doctors met in that part. So everything that's being built will be 5G compatible. It's going to be when that's turned on, and that's also a conflict between the United States and China. But currently it's being tested over in St. Joe. All your vehicle recognitions, like those things, is running 5G. So the data is still being looked at, gathered. That's what's going on.
This meeting is adjourned. We'll do more on 5G too. We'll keep pushing it, push different meetings.